Welcome to my channel, The Stoic Way. Before we begin, I want you to imagine a moment that you never admitted to anyone. The moment you realized you weren't even on her radar. Not disliked, not rejected, just invisible. That sinking feeling in your chest. That almost physical weight of wondering why you don't seem to exist in her world, even though you've done everything right. If that feeling just stirred something inside you, pause for a second and hit the like button and subscribe, because what I'm about to tell you will challenge everything you thought you understood about attraction. And it might even change your life. You see, most men believe women ignore them because they're not handsome enough, not tall enough, not rich enough, or not interesting enough. But the truth is far more psychological and far more fixable. Women don't ignore 80% of men because those men are inadequate. They ignore them because those men blend into the emotional background of a woman's mind. There's no emotional imprint, no moment that compels her attention, no signal that triggers her instinct to stop and evaluate whether you matter in her world. Most men are trying to get noticed through effort. But attraction doesn't respond to effort. It responds to presence, to energy, and to the invisible cues you give without even opening your mouth. And yes, I'll explain exactly what that means. Right now, I want you to notice something important. The men who are noticed effortlessly aren't chasing, impressing, or proving. They're not louder, stronger, or more confident in a dramatic way. They simply possess a grounded sense of self that creates a gravitational pull. Women feel it before they understand it. It's the way a man stands, the way he listens without trying to win, the way he speaks without performing. It's the calm certainty in his tone that signals he's not seeking validation. He's offering presence. Most men never develop this, not because they can't, but because no one ever showed them how. Instead, society taught men to compete, to achieve, to accumulate, to perform. But women don't respond to performance. They respond to emotional resonance. And once you understand how to create that resonance, you stop being invisible. You become the man who enters a room and shifts the atmosphere without trying, the man her mind cannot filter out. And that begins right here with you today. Now, let me tell you something most men will never admit. Being ignored by women is not about what you have. It's about what you project. You can have a six-pack, a fancy car, and a corner office, and still go completely unnoticed. Why? Because the signals you're sending are weak, confusing, or worst of all, desperate. Women unconsciously read these signals before you even speak. And if you're vibrating neediness, uncertainty, or a lack of presence, you're automatically filtered out. This isn't judgment, it's biology. Attraction works like a radar system that doesn't negotiate. Here's the hard truth. Most men never trigger it. Not because they lack effort, but because they're too available, too predictable, and too focused on approval. Think about how many times you've been mid-conversation, noticing she seems distracted, almost mentally checking out, yet you keep talking, hoping politeness, humor, or charm will turn things around. It won't. Politeness is not a magnet. Charm without depth is not a magnet. Effort without direction is not a magnet. The women who truly notice you aren't reacting to what you do. They're responding to the invisible confidence beneath it. So how do you change this? First, you stop trying to be seen. It sounds backwards, but the moment a man becomes obsessed with being noticed, he becomes reactive, anxious, and predictable. Instead, turn your focus inward, strengthen your identity, clarify your values, pursue interests that fulfill you, not ones meant to impress her. When you operate from that place, something powerful shifts. Your energy changes. You stop chasing attention, and your presence starts to command it. Second, understand emotional contrast. Women are wired to notice what feels different. If every man she meets is agreeable, polite, and predictable, the one who is calm, grounded, and self-contained naturally stands out. You cut through the noise. You become memorable, not because of what you say or do, but because of how you make her feel safe, intrigued, and subtly challenged at the same time. That's the energy that gets remembered, the energy that breaks the invisibility barrier and makes a woman pause and truly notice. This is where most men fail. They treat attraction like a checklist instead of a feeling. But once you understand that attraction is a psychological response to presence, emotional control, and contrast, everything changes. It's no longer about trying harder. It's about being sharper, deeper, and more compelling without effort. And when you finally grasp this, you're no longer the man she overlooks. You become the man she keeps thinking about. Now let's go even deeper, because this is where most men completely misunderstand what women are actually drawn to. You've probably been told that confidence means showing off, being bold, or dominating conversations. That's only half the truth. Real confidence, the kind that truly attracts, is quiet, controlled, and emotionally grounded. It doesn't need to be loud to be felt. It's magnetic. It's the ability to be fully present in a moment without needing validation, without performing for approval, without expecting anything in return. Here's an example. Imagine you're talking to a woman, and instead of trying to make her laugh, impress her with stories, or demonstrate your value, you simply listen. Not superficially, not while thinking about what you'll say next, but really listen. You notice the tiny details in her tone, in her expressions, in her energy. You respond subtly, thoughtfully, without over-explaining or overcompensating. That's the kind of presence that's rare, and rarity is irresistibly attractive. Most men are constantly on, constantly performing, constantly seeking a reaction. Women ignore those men because their energy is exhausting, predictable, and emotionally flat. The second key is emotional unpredictability, but in a grounded way. Let me explain. Women are wired to respond to subtle shifts in emotional energy, not mood, swings, not drama, but the kind of controlled unpredictability that keeps her curiosity alive. You laugh when it's appropriate. You speak seriously when it matters. You hold back sometimes instead of giving everything at once. This creates tension, intrigue, and ultimately desire. Men who are too predictable, too nice, are emotionally invisible. Finally, understand the invisible hierarchy of attraction. Women unconsciously evaluate a man on 3 levels: physical presence, emotional presence, and social presence. Physical presence is obvious. Your posture, eye contact, tone. Emotional presence is deeper. Your ability to remain composed, confident, and attuned to energy shifts. Social presence is subtle. How you interact with the world around you, how others respond to you, how you carry yourself without forcing recognition. Master these 3 layers, and suddenly you're no longer overlooked. You're no longer part of the background. You're the man who subtly shifts her perception, who registers in her mind before she even knows why. And here's the part most men never realize. Once you understand and internalize this, being ignored isn't a reflection of your shortcomings. It's a reflection of your previous strategies. You don't need to become someone else. You need to become the version of yourself who radiates presence, unpredictability, and emotional intelligence. That transformation is invisible to most men, but unmistakable to women. And it's exactly what moves you from being ignored to being unforgettable. Let's talk about a concept that most men completely overlook: the power of scarcity and selective attention. Women are wired to value what feels slightly out of reach, what requires a moment of mental effort to capture. When a man is constantly available, constantly seeking approval, constantly trying to prove his worth, he becomes background noise. He becomes one more face in a sea of options. This is why being too nice often backfires. Niceness alone does not create desire. It creates familiarity, and familiarity without contrast is invisible. Here's the truth. Attraction is less about what you do and more about what you withhold. The subtle art of holding your energy, maintaining boundaries, and not giving everything at once is what triggers emotional engagement. Women notice a man who has his own world, who doesn't revolve around her attention. They feel the pull not because of manipulation, but because your independence signals high value. This is not arrogance, it's self-respect. It's understanding that your presence is not a commodity to be earned, but a gift to be recognized. Next, let's talk about timing. Women are constantly assessing the pace of connection. Move too fast and you trigger fear or disinterest. Move too slow and you lose momentum and fade into the background. The men who are ignored don't understand pacing. They either overwhelm with effort or vanish with indecision. The men who are noticed know how to calibrate their presence. They create tension and intrigue by showing interest selectively, by balancing availability with mystery, by letting curiosity do the work for them. Emotional resonance is another layer most men miss. Women are drawn to emotional depth, not just charm or confidence. Being able to express subtle vulnerability at the right moment, to demonstrate self-awareness and inner strength simultaneously, is magnetic. This is what differentiates the man she can't forget from the man she politely tolerates. Emotional resonance is the invisible fingerprint of attraction. It's subtle, it's unconscious, and it cannot be faked. Finally, understand this. Being ignored is rarely permanent. It's a signal, not a verdict. Once you shift your energy, your presence, and your strategy, women's attention follows naturally. It's not about tricks, lines, or manipulation. It's about becoming the kind of man whose presence she can't filter out, whose energy registers before she even speaks. That shift begins with mastery of self, not mastery of her. And that mastery, quiet, grounded, and deliberate, is exactly what 80% of men never achieve. Now, let's get into one of the most misunderstood truths about attraction. Women don't fall for what you say. They fall for how you make them feel. Most men focus on being funny, smart, or interesting, believing that if they talk enough, if they impress enough, she will notice them. But the reality is far more subtle and far more powerful. Women are constantly scanning for emotional cues. Does this man make me feel safe, excited, curious, seen? When you can trigger these feelings consciously or unconsciously, you move from being ignored to being unforgettable. Here's the key. Emotional impact doesn't require over-the-top gestures. It comes from the small, consistent behaviors that signal presence, confidence, and emotional intelligence. The way you maintain eye contact without staring. The way you respond with calm authority instead of desperation. The way you smile with authenticity rather than forcing charm. All of these are triggers that register deep in the female subconscious. Women feel it before they think it. And once they feel it, they can't ignore it. Next, consider the power of projection. Women notice men who project a strong sense of self, even if subtly. This isn't about arrogance, it's about clarity. A man who knows who he is, what he wants, and how he moves through the world radiates value. He doesn't need to shout, impress, or beg for recognition. That clarity acts like a magnet, pulling attention naturally. The men who are ignored project uncertainty, indecision, or neediness. Their energy is scattered, and women unconsciously filter them out as low priority. Another layer is contrast. Humans, especially women, are naturally wired to respond to contrast in emotional and behavioral patterns. When every man she encounters behaves the same way, reacts predictably, or follows identical rhythms, her mind filters them out. But when a man shows controlled unpredictability, calm composure mixed with subtle assertiveness, light teasing balanced with genuine attention, independence combined with emotional availability, he disrupts that pattern. And that disruption is powerful. It's the line between blending into the background and standing out in her memory. Finally, understand the emotional economy at play. Women allocate attention like currency. They are selective, deliberate, and unconscious about it. The men who capture that attention are not necessarily the loudest, richest, or most conventionally attractive. They are the men whose energy, presence, and emotional resonance stand out. By mastering your inner state, controlling your energy, and projecting authenticity without chasing validation, you position yourself as scarce, valuable, and magnetic. And that is exactly how you move from being ignored to being impossible to overlook. By now, you should be starting to see the pattern. Being ignored isn't a punishment. It's a reflection of how you operate unconsciously. Most men live in reactive mode, constantly chasing approval, constantly performing, constantly seeking attention, and women unconsciously filter them out. But here's the empowering truth. None of this is permanent. Every behavior, every energy pattern, every subtle signal can be shifted. And the moment you understand this, you reclaim control over your presence, your influence, and ultimately your attractiveness. Let's break it down. Step 1 is presence. Presence is the invisible gravitational force that makes women notice you. It's grounded, calm, and fully aware without needing to dominate or perform. Step 2 is energy management. Women unconsciously read emotional energy. So, learning to control, modulate, and project the right energy creates intrigue. Step 3 is selective engagement. Availability is not scarcity. Desperation is showing subtle unpredictability. Being engaged yet not consumed by the outcome triggers curiosity and attention. Step 4 is emotional resonance. The ability to subtly influence feelings, make her feel understood, challenged, and secure simultaneously, is what turns casual notice into deep interest. And let me be clear, this is not manipulation. It's self-mastery. When you embody these principles, you stop chasing attention because your presence commands it. You stop being part of the 80% who are ignored because you are now operating on a level that women register instinctively, even before they consciously acknowledge it. Your energy, your composure, and your emotional clarity become magnets. You don't need lines, tricks, or superficial charm. The attraction is baked into the way you exist. Here's the final secret most men overlook. Consistency. Women notice patterns over time, not isolated moments. Your ability to maintain calm confidence, emotional depth, and selective engagement consistently creates a narrative in her mind. One where you are a man of value, control, and magnetic presence. Patterns beat performance every single time. So if you've been ignored, take this as your roadmap. Shift your energy, sharpen your presence, and master the emotional signals you project. Stop chasing her attention and instead cultivate the man she cannot ignore. The result isn't just attraction. It's respect, intrigue, and the undeniable pull that makes her notice you without you even trying. Now, I want you to pause and reflect. Thanks for watching. If you found like this video, please press the bell icon and subscribe to my channel, The Stoic Way.